Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another in our seemingly endless series of artists who played the premieres of major works and lived to record them well in beautiful sound most of the time. We're talking at this point about Pierre Monteux, and I know you're saying, oh yeah, it's the Rite of Spring. It's got to be the Rite of Spring. Well, it's not the Rite of Spring, and I'll tell you why in a moment. It's Ravel's Daphnis and Chloë, which first of all, I think was just about as important a premiere in terms of, it's Ravel's greatest, biggest work, sort of, kind of, isn't it? And it's beloved and universally acclaimed as a masterpiece and a 20th century classic. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's not as historically as revolutionary, of course, as the Rite of Spring was. Ravel wasn't quite that kind of guy, but it happened around the same time. It was kind of an amazing period. The second decade of the 20th century is when all of this was. But one of the reasons I think that this is sort of, we'll get to the Rite of Spring in this series. I'm sure we'll have to cover it at some point. We just do. But I thought this was more interesting because, first of all, most people don't think about it, but it's amazing. And second of all, Monteux's recording is superb. It's with the London Symphony Orchestra, and it's absolutely glorious. It's as good as any Daphnis out there. And it really matters because his Rite of Spring, well, he recorded it a couple times. Neither of them are top recommendations. It's good that he did the premiere, and it's good that he recorded it. But that is a work that probably didn't come into its own in the sense that it could actually be played. I mean, really played by orchestras until stereo LPs, popped up in the 1960s and 70s is when people really started to do it. I think Leonard Bernstein's New York Philharmonic Rite of Spring was the one that really kind of set everybody off. But now I'm talking about Stravinsky, and what I want to talk about is Ravel, Daphnis and Chloë, a symphony chorégraphique. Now, Daphnis and Chloë is, in terms of complexity and, exceptional orchestration and texture, almost as complicated as the Rite of Spring. It really is. There we go with Stravinsky again. See how hard it is to get away from these things? But it is an astonishing work for a very, very complex performing apparatus. You've got an enormous orchestra, including things like you got a wind machine, and you need to have a set of tuned antique cymbals, or crotales as they're called in those days. You put them on a rack and you can play them like a glockenspiel. And you've got a bunch of harps, and you've got a wordless choir that has to be coordinated with interludes just for the wordless choir. So to do the complete Daphnis and Chloë was a serious project. And Monteux obviously acquitted himself fabulously because he was, among other qualities, just a supreme professional. He really was. I mean, whether he liked the music or didn't like the music, he was always able to give his best, both live and in the recording studio, I might add. He was not one of those guys, I mean, old though he was, he died, he was in his late 80s in the 1960s. He was around for a long time, but he had very little problem making records and conveying the same kind of fundamental musicality that you hear in his live performances, in his recordings. His recordings are worthy of him for the most part. And as a conductor, fortunately, maybe, he was not the kind of guy who was likely to go wild in a live concert and then do something completely different in the studio. That could happen, for example, with Charles Munch, to cite another kind of French guy, kind of. He could be totally crazy live, and then his studio recordings would be far more sober in conception, although often excellent. But he could seem to be two different people. Monteux was not that. Monteux was one guy all the way through. He was a wonderful French craftsman at the podium, and his music making, for that reason, I think, has survived very, very well because of its, like George Sell, these other people who just have fundamentally strong musical values. And so those things, good rhythm and good feeling for balance and appropriate tempos and wide dynamic range and an appreciation of orchestral color and clarity and all of those qualities you hear extensively here in his Ravel, Daphnis, and Chloe, because it's just a beautiful work to do that, and it's a symphonic work. You know, Ravel called it a choreographic symphony. It's based on just a certain number of motives that are reworked and developed throughout the piece. It has to have coherence. It has to have flow. It has to have shape. And this performance by Pierre Monteux, who led the premiere, has all of those things. I think the premiere was like in 1913. Let me just take a quick look to wrap this up. I can go into Google here, and it's easy. Ravel, Daphnis, premiere. I should have done this before I started, but as you know, I'm kind of spontaneous about those things. June 8th, 1912. Okay, June 8th, 1912, and he was around to make this recording in, hang on a moment, Tito. Here it is, Daphnis and Chloe, in 1961. I think it was 1959. So there we go. Yeah, Daphnis and Chloe, complete ballet, exclamation point thing, asterisky thing. Yeah, it looks like it was 59. So, wow. Pretty amazing, isn't it? We have these legacies, these extended legacies of performance by great artists, and we don't pay enough attention to them, I think. We would rather listen to a conjectural recreation of a concert that never existed under circumstances that could not possibly have obtained of some Baroque thing that was written hundreds of years ago with all kinds of speculative nonsense going on. But we don't listen to the actual performances by the people who were there. And, it's one of the reasons that we know, for example, that the contemporary view of vibrato is total bullshit and nonsense is because people like Monteux, who were born in, the 1870s, and who were at the premiere of the Franck Symphony in D minor and all these romantic pieces and grew up in that tradition, never said to their orchestras, "Oh God, when I was growing up, we didn't play with vibrato. Don't do that." No. It's not what happened. I made a video about it, about conductors who lived into the LP era, who were born in supposedly the dinosaur ages, and it proves that these people are, oh God, they're so wrong. And here is one way to know what was right. Monteux and Daphnis and Chloe. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. And go listen to this. It's really quite remarkable. Take care.